Hey guys, how's it going? And welcome to the Rebel Pastor YouTube channel. Pastor Sky over here in South Korea. I will be here for another 2 to 3 weeks, and then I'll be heading to other cities and countries. So hopefully by that time, I'll let you know what city and what country I am in at that moment. Now, what we're going to get in today is we're going to continue with hard questions for Christians. And this is not going to be a question that you've given to me, but today I'm going to be asking you a question, all right? The question here is, what's the point of the Lord's second coming? Now, I know a lot of you guys are going to have these, oh, it's about judgment, it's the end of the world, like, is it this or is it that? But there's a couple things I want to bring up to you, is we know that 2,000 years ago, what happened? Salvation came. And how did salvation come? It came through Jesus Christ. So if you look at the first verse for today, which is Acts chapter 4, verse 12, what does it say? It says, salvation is found in no one else, for there is no other name under heaven given to mankind by which we must be saved. Jesus is the only way to salvation. And what did Jesus do that brought about salvation? We know it's from the cross. So if you look at 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 24, it says, he himself bore our sins in his body on the cross, so that we might die to sins and live for righteousness. By his wounds you have been healed. It's through the cross that we have been saved, right? He bore our sins. So when we look at it, it's like, oh, okay, so Jesus died on the cross, and this is why we're saved, right? So Jesus is salvation. And if we believe in Jesus, where do we go? We go to heaven. Now, this is where it gets really interesting, because 2,000 years ago, Jesus did the ultimate act, died on the cross, and now everyone who believes in him goes to heaven. But in Matthew chapter 16, Jesus actually predicts his own death. And then after predicting his death, what does he say in Matthew 16, verse 27? He says, for the Son of Man is going to come in his Father's glory with his angels, and then he'll reward each person according to what they have done. So first, Jesus predicts his death, and then he says, oh, I'm going to come back in the Father's glory. And this is actually the first time that Jesus directly and openly said that he is coming back. Now, here's the thing. If you die on the cross and you do the ultimate action that saves all mankind, and from that point on 2,000 years ago, everyone who has faith and believes in you, and Jesus himself says, it is finished. What's the point of the second coming? Like, why would you need to come back if we're already going to heaven anyways? What is the point of the Lord's second coming if everything is already done and finished? Why does he need to come back why doesn't he need to come back in the first place? Or you could say the second place, right? Think about it. If we believe because of the cross and we believe in Jesus and we go to heaven, and then his second coming, we have to come back down again, then he takes us all back into heaven again. Why does he need to come back? What's the point if we're already in heaven? So, Paul is very interesting. So in the book of Hebrews, Paul states the difference between the first coming and the second coming. It's in Hebrews chapter 9, verse 28. And what does it say? It says, so Christ was sacrificed once to take away the sins of many, and he will appear a second time, not to bear sin, but to bring salvation to those who are waiting for him. Now, who is waiting for Jesus to come back a second time? It is every single believer, right? Who are the ones waiting for him? It's not those that don't believe. It's those that do believe and are waiting for Jesus to come back. So here's the interesting thing. It says that the first coming, he died on the cross too. What's the reason for the first coming? Bear sin. The second coming is to bring salvation. That's really interesting, because that would, it kind of infers that the first coming is a preparation for the second coming, and the actual fulfillment of salvation only happens at the Lord's second coming. And that's why it's this big and this important, right? Like this would be a reason why every single person should be waiting and wanting for the Lord's second coming to come. But if you're already going to heaven already, then there actually is no point and there's no wanting or yearning for the Lord's second coming, right? There's something that else I want to show you that kind of gives you more of a hint and makes you think a little bit more deeper. Okay, I want you to look at Revelations chapter 20. Now, if you look at Revelation chapter 20, the title for this chapter is the 1,000 years or the 1,000-year reign. So Jesus comes back a second time and he reigns for 1,000 years, right? Now, here's the thing. What's really interesting is the Lord's second coming comes and then he reigns for 1,000 years. And then what happens at the end of the 1,000 years? So first, we look at verse 7. And what verse 7 says is, it starts, the sentence is, when the 1,000 years are over, which means that everything from after verse 7 is talking about what happens after the 1,000 years, right? So what we're going to look at is verse 12 and 13. And what does it say in Revelation chapter 20, verse 12 and 13? It says, and I saw the dead, great and small, standing before the throne, and books were opened. Another book was opened, which is the book of life. The dead were judged according to what they had done as recorded in the books. The sea gave up the dead that were in it, and death and Hades gave up the dead that were in them, and each person was judged according to what they had done. What happens after the 1,000 years are over? It is the final judgment where the book of life is open and every person, all the things that they have done will be judged. Those will go to heaven and others will go to hell. It is the final judgment. When does it happen? After the 1,000 years, which leaves a lot for us to think about. Is like, whoa, if that final judgment is not till after the Lord's second coming and it happens after the 1,000 years are over, then what happens in between? As Paul stated, the first coming is to bear sin, but the second coming is to bring salvation. And that's a lot of food for thought, and it's something that I think that everyone should be thinking about as a Christian, as someone of faith, how much you should truly be longing and wanting for the Lord's second coming to come in your lifetime, right? Not after you die. Because what it's inferring here is much different than what we've been thinking and what we've been taught also. And this is something that I just want you guys to start thinking about is, what's the point of the Lord's second coming? How important should it be to us? And it's a lot bigger than you think, all right? So there it is, guys. Another food for thought, hard questions for Christians, things for you to think about and for you to kind of dive deep into the word and try to figure out even more. Hope you guys really enjoyed it. If you have any questions or anything else, please put in the comments below. Would love to hear what you guys think about this too. All right, everyone, enjoy your week and we'll see you guys again next week on the Rebel Pastor YouTube channel. Pastor Sky signing out. Have a wonderful and awesome week and God bless. Bye-bye.
Rebel, never settle, I raise the level. It's time to go, sky's the limit, it's me against the world. Rebel pastor,